The Galactic Empire stretched across the stars like a vast, unyielding shadow, its dominion unchallenged for millennia. Its fleets were the envy of the cosmos, its soldiers bred for war, and its leaders convinced of their invincibility. To the Empire, strength was measured in the cold calculus of firepower and the unflinching discipline of its armies. Weakness was a flaw to be eradicated, and those who displayed it were deemed unworthy of existence. It was this arrogance that blinded them to the truth, that strength could wear many faces, and sometimes the most unassuming could be the most dangerous. On the fringes of the Empire's territory, a scout ship emerged from the shimmering veil of hyperspace, its sleek hull glinting under the light of a distant sun. Aboard the vessel, Commander Kral, a seasoned officer of the Empire's 7th Legion, stood at the observation deck, his piercing gaze fixed on the planet below. It was a small, unremarkable world, its surface a patchwork of blue and green, dotted with signs of primitive civilization. Kral's lips curled into a sneer as he studied the readings on his data pad. The inhabitants were bipedal, carbon-based lifeforms, humans they called themselves. Physically, they were unimpressive, shorter and frilier than the Empire's warriors, their technology rudimentary at best. Kral couldn't help but laugh, a deep, guttural sound that echoed through the chamber. "This is what the High Command is worried about?" he muttered, turning to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Vora. These creatures wouldn't last a day in the arenas of Kesser Prime. Vora, a sharp-eyed tactician with a reputation for caution, frowned as she reviewed the data. "Commander, the reports indicate they've been expanding rapidly. Their colonies are scattered across this sector. Perhaps we shouldn't underestimate them." Kral waved a dismissive hand. "Expansion means nothing if they lack the strength to defend it. Look at them, Vora. They're soft, undisciplined. They don't even have a standing army. Just militias." He spat the word as if it were an insult. "No, this will be a simple mission. We'll land, establish dominance, and show them their place in the Empire's order." The scout ship descended through the planet's atmosphere, its engines humming with precision. Below, a small human settlement came into view, a cluster of modest buildings surrounded by fields of crops. The ship landed with a soft thud, its ramp lowering to reveal Kral and a squad of heavily armed soldiers. The humans, alerted by the commotion, gathered cautiously, their faces a mix of curiosity and fear. Kral stepped forward, his towering frame casting a long shadow over the crowd. "I am Commander Kral of the Galactic Empire," he announced, his voice booming like thunder. "This planet is now under our jurisdiction. You will submit to our authority, or you will be destroyed." The humans exchanged uneasy glances, but one among them stepped forward, a man of average height, his face weathered but calm. He wore the simple attire of a farmer, but his eyes held a quiet intensity. "I'm Captain Elias," he said, his voice steady. "We don't want any trouble, but this is our home. We'll defend it if we have to." Kral laughed again, a sound devoid of humor. "Defend it? With what? Your pitchforks and your courage?" He gestured to his soldiers, who raised their weapons in unison. "You have 1 hour to surrender. After that, we will take what we want by force." As the Empire's soldiers began to secure the perimeter, Elias retreated to a small command post hidden beneath a barn. Inside, a handful of human soldiers, men and women clad in makeshift armor, awaited his orders. "They're as arrogant as we expected," Elias said, his voice low. "But they're also predictable. They think we're weak. Let's use that against them." The humans moved quickly, their actions precise and coordinated. They had prepared for this moment, knowing that one day the Empire's shadow would fall upon their world. Hidden trenches were uncovered, traps were set, and every civilian was evacuated to safety. When the hour passed and Kral's soldiers advanced, they found the settlement eerily quiet. The silence unnerved them, but Kral dismissed it as cowardice. "They've fled," he said, smirking. "Just as I expected. Secure the area and—" His words were cut short by a deafening explosion as the ground beneath his feet erupted in flames. The humans had detonated a series of hidden charges, scattering the Empire's forces and sowing chaos. From the shadows, human soldiers emerged, their weapons firing with deadly accuracy. They moved like ghosts, striking quickly and disappearing before the Empire's soldiers could retaliate. Kral roared in frustration, his orders drowned out by the cacophony of battle. "Fall back!" he shouted, his voice tinged with desperation. "Regroup," and another explosion rocked the area, sending Kral sprawling to the ground. He scrambled to his feet, his pride wounded more than his body. Around him, his soldiers were in disarray, their discipline shattered by the humans' relentless assault. For the first time in his career, Kral felt a flicker of doubt. These humans, these weak, fragile creatures, were fighting with a ferocity he had never seen before. The battle lasted less than an hour, but to Kral it felt like an eternity. When the dust settled, the humans had vanished, leaving behind a scene of devastation. The Empire's forces had suffered heavy casualties, their once proud ranks reduced to a disorganized mob. Kral stood amidst the wreckage, his fists clenched in rage. He had underestimated the humans, and it had cost him dearly. "Commander," Vora said, her voice trembling, "what do we do now?" Kral's eyes burned with fury, but beneath the anger, there was a hint of something else, fear. "We report this to High Command," he said through gritted teeth, "and we tell them, these humans are not what they seem." As the scout ship lifted off, leaving the planet behind, Elias watched from a hidden vantage point, his expression grim but resolute. "They'll be back," he said to his team, "and next time they won't underestimate us. But neither will we underestimate them." The first encounter had ended in a stalemate, but the seeds of a greater conflict had been sown. The Galactic Empire had mocked the humans for their weakness, but now they had glimpsed the fire that burned within them, and that fire would not be easily extinguished. The Galactic Empire's High Command convened in the Grand War Chamber of their flagship, the Eclipse of Kesser, a vessel so vast it dwarfed entire cities. The room was a testament to their might, its walls adorned with banners of conquest and holographic displays of their sprawling dominion. Yet the atmosphere was tense, the air thick with unease. Commander Kral stood before the council, his once proud demeanor now tinged with frustration and shame. The holographic recording of the skirmish on the human colony played before the assembled leaders, its grainy images showing the Empire's forces in disarray, their disciplined ranks broken by the humans' relentless assault. "This is unacceptable," growled Grand Admiral Zorith, his voice a low rumble that seemed to shake the very foundations of the chamber. His crimson eyes burned with fury as he glared at Kral. "You were sent to subjugate a primitive species, not to be humiliated by them. Explain yourself." Kral straightened, his jaw tightening. "The humans are not as weak as they appear, Grand Admiral. They fight with a ferocity and cunning I have never encountered. They used the terrain to their advantage, struck from the shadows, and exploited our overconfidence. I underestimated them, and for that I take full responsibility. But I assure you, they are not to be taken lightly." Zorith leaned back in his throne-like chair, his massive frame casting a shadow over the room. "Weakness is a disease, Kral, and it seems you have been infected by it. However, your failure has revealed a threat we cannot ignore. If these humans are capable of this, they must be eradicated before they spread their defiance to others." The council murmured in agreement, their voices a chorus of cold determination. Zorith raised a hand, silencing them. "We will crush them with overwhelming force. No more games. No more underestimations. The 7th Legion will lead the assault, supported by the 3rd and 5th Fleets. We will burn their colonies to ash and leave no trace of their existence." Kral hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. "Grand Admiral, I urge caution. The humans are resourceful and unpredictable. A full-scale invasion may not be the most prudent course of action." Zorith's eyes narrowed, his patience wearing thin. "Your caution borders on cowardice, Kral. The Empire does not falter in the face of adversity. We destroy it. You will lead the assault and you will redeem yourself. Fail again, and you will be stripped of your rank and cast into the void." Kral bowed his head, his pride warring with his growing unease. As you command, Grand Admiral. The invasion began with a show of force meant to intimidate and demoralize. The Empire's fleets descended upon the human colonies like a swarm of locusts, their ships blotting out the stars. Orbital bombardments rained fire upon the surface, reducing cities to smoldering ruins. The humans, it seemed, were powerless to stop the onslaught. Kral watched from the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Fist, his expression grim. He had hoped the display of overwhelming power would force the humans to surrender, but deep down he knew better. These were not a people who would bow easily. On the surface, the human resistance was swift and coordinated. Captain Elias, now a figure of legend among his people, had anticipated the Empire's strategy. The colonies had been evacuated, their populations relocated to hidden strongholds deep within the planet's mountains and forests. What the Empire destroyed were empty shells, their fury wasted on hollow victories. Elias moved among his soldiers, his presence a calming force amidst the chaos. "They think they've won," he said, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "But this is just the beginning. We've trained for this. We've prepared for this. Now, we show them what it means to fight for our home." The humans struck back with a precision that belied their supposed inferiority. Using the terrain to their advantage, they launched ambushes on the Empire's ground forces, their hit-and-run tactics leaving the invaders reeling. The Empire's soldiers, trained for open warfare, found themselves outmatched in the labyrinthine tunnels and dense forests of the human colonies. Every step forward came at a cost, every victory Pyrrhic. Kral, leading the ground assault, felt the weight of the humans' resistance. His forces were bogged down, their progress slowed by an enemy that refused to engage on their terms. The humans were everywhere and nowhere, their attacks relentless and unpredictable. Kral's frustration grew with each passing day, his confidence eroding under the strain of constant attrition. "They're like ghosts," muttered one of his lieutenants, his voice tinged with fear. "We can't fight what we can't see." Kral silenced him with a glare, but the words lingered in his mind. The humans were more than just soldiers. They were a force of nature, their will unbreakable, their resolve unshakable. He began to see them not as weak, but as something far more dangerous, a people who would fight to the last breath for their freedom. The turning point came during the Battle of Black Ridge, a strategic stronghold the Empire had deemed crucial to their campaign. Kral led the assault personally, determined to break the human spirit. The ridge was a natural fortress, its steep cliffs and narrow passes a death trap for any invading force. The humans had fortified it with a network of trenches, tunnels, and hidden artillery, turning it into a killing field. The Empire's forces advanced under a barrage of fire, their shields and armor barely holding against the onslaught. Kral pushed forward, his determination fueled by desperation. But as they reached the summit, they found it abandoned, the humans nowhere to be seen. Before Kral could react, the ground beneath his feet erupted in a series of explosions, the ridge collapsing into chaos. The humans had lured them into a trap, sacrificing the stronghold to cripple the Empire's forces. Kral barely escaped with his life, his armor scorched and his pride shattered. As he retreated, he saw the faces of his soldiers, faces etched with fear and doubt. The Empire's invincibility had been a lie, and the humans had exposed it. Back on the Iron Fist, Kral stood alone in his quarters, his reflection in the polished metal walls a grim reminder of his failures. He had underestimated the humans, and it had cost him dearly. But more than that, he had begun to question the Empire's ideals. Strength, he realized, was not just about power and discipline. It was about resilience, adaptability, and the will to fight for something greater than oneself. He activated a secure channel, his voice low and urgent. "Vora, I need you to gather intelligence on the humans. Everything we have. Their history, their culture, their tactics. We need to understand them if we're to have any chance of defeating them." Vora's voice crackled through the calm. "Understood, Commander." But Kral's eyes hardened with resolve. "I'm planning to win this war. And to do that, we need to stop seeing the humans as weak. They're not our inferiors. They're our equals. And if we don't start treating them as such, we're going to lose. As the transmission ended, Kral turned to the viewport, his gaze fixed on the planet below. The humans had proven themselves to be a formidable enemy, but the true battle was just beginning. The Empire's arrogance had been their downfall, but Kral was determined to learn from their mistakes. The question was, would it be enough? The Iron Fist hung in orbit like a silent predator, its sleek hull reflecting the pale light of the distant sun. Inside, Commander Kral stood on the bridge, his gaze fixed on the planet below. The human colonies, once vibrant and teeming with life, now bore the scars of the Empire's wrath: charred landscapes, shattered cities, and the lingering smoke of countless battles. Yet, despite the devastation, the humans had not broken. If anything, their resistance had only grown fiercer, their defiance a beacon of hope for those who dared to stand against the Empire's tyranny. Kral's reflection in the viewport was a stark contrast to the man he had been at the start of the campaign. His once imposing figure now bore the weight of exhaustion and doubt, his eyes shadowed by the toll of relentless warfare. The humans had forced him to confront truths he had long ignored, truths about the Empire, about strength, and about himself. He turned as Lieutenant Vora entered the bridge, her expression grim but resolute. "The intelligence you requested," she said, handing him a data pad. "It's enlightening." Kral scrolled through the files, his brow furrowing as he absorbed the information. The humans' history was a tapestry of struggle and triumph, a testament to their resilience. They had faced extinction-level events, wars, and countless hardships. Yet they had always emerged stronger, their spirit unbroken. Their tactics, once dismissed as primitive, were now revealed to be the product of centuries of adaptation and ingenuity. Kral felt a pang of something he hadn't felt in years: respect. "They're not just fighting for survival," he murmured, more to himself than to Vora. "They're fighting for their future, for their children, for their right to exist." Vora nodded, her voice soft but firm. "We've underestimated them, Commander, but we can't afford to do so any longer. If we're to win this war, we need to change our approach." Kral's jaw tightened as he considered her words. The Empire's strategy had been one of brute force, a hammer to crush what they perceived as a fragile enemy. But the humans were not fragile. They were a storm, unpredictable and unyielding, and the Empire's hammer had only fueled their fury. Kral knew that to defeat them, he would need to become something more than a soldier. He would need to become a strategist, a leader who understood his enemy. "Prepare the fleet," he said, his voice steady. "We're going to hit them where it hurts. Not their cities, not their armies, but their spirit. We'll target their leadership, their command structure. Without it, they'll falter." Vora hesitated, her eyes narrowing. "And if they don't? If they fight on even without their leaders?" Kral met her gaze, his expression unreadable. "Then we'll have learned something even more valuable. That their strength doesn't come from one man or one strategy. It comes from all of them, together." On the surface, Captain Elias moved through the ruins of what had once been a thriving city, his boots crunching on shattered glass and scorched earth. The humans had been pushed to the brink, their resources dwindling and their numbers thinning, but their resolve remained unshaken. Elias had become a symbol of that resolve, his name whispered like a prayer among the survivors. He knew the Empire would come for him, that they would see him as the key to breaking the human spirit. And he was ready. "They'll try to take you out," said Lieutenant Mara, his second-in-command, as they surveyed the makeshift defenses. "It's what I'd do if I were them." Elias nodded, his eyes scanning the horizon. "Let them try. We've got a few surprises left." The humans had turned the ruins into a fortress, their ingenuity transforming rubble into barricades and debris into traps. Every street, every building was a potential battlefield, and Elias intended to make the Empire pay for every inch of ground they took. But he also knew that this battle would be different. The Empire had learned from their mistakes, and Kral was not a man to repeat them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the city, the Empire's forces descended. This time, there was no grand display of power, no orbital bombardment to announce their arrival. Instead, they came silently, their movements precise and calculated. Kral had abandoned the Empire's traditional tactics, opting for a surgical strike aimed at decapitating the humans' leadership. His target was Elias, and he would stop at nothing to eliminate him. The battle began in the dead of night, the silence shattered by the crack of gunfire and the roar of explosions. The Empire's forces advanced with a discipline born of desperation, their every move calculated to minimize losses and maximize efficiency. But the humans were ready. They fought with a ferocity that bordered on madness, their every action fueled by the knowledge that this was their last stand. Elias moved through the chaos like a ghost, his presence a rallying point for his soldiers. He fought not as a commander, but as one of them, his rifle barking in the darkness as he led the defense. The Empire's forces closed in, their numbers overwhelming, but Elias refused to retreat. He knew that if he fell, the human spirit would falter, and the Empire would claim victory. Kral, leading the assault personally, found himself face to face with Elias in the heart of the ruined city. The two men stood amidst the wreckage, their eyes locked in a silent battle of wills. For a moment, the chaos around them seemed to fade, the world narrowing to the space between them. "You fought well," Kral said, his voice carrying a note of grudging respect. "But this ends here. Surrender, and I'll spare your people." Elias smiled, a grim, determined expression. "You still don't get it, do you? This was never about winning or losing. It was about showing you that we're not afraid, that we'll never stop fighting. You can kill me, but you'll never break us." Kral's expression hardened, but beneath the mask of determination, there was a flicker of doubt. He raised his weapon, his finger tightening on the trigger, but before he could fire, the ground beneath them erupted in a deafening explosion. The humans had rigged the city to blow, sacrificing their last stronghold to cripple the Empire's forces. Kral was thrown to the ground, his ears ringing and his vision blurred. When he finally regained his bearings, Elias was gone, vanished into the chaos. The Empire's forces were in disarray, their carefully planned assault reduced to chaos. Kral knew that the battle was lost, but more than that, he knew that the war was far from over. "Commander," Vora said, her voice cutting through his thoughts. "What are your orders?" Kral turned to her, his expression resolute. "We pull back, regroup, and then we negotiate." Kral nodded, his gaze returning to the ruins. "They've shown us that strength isn't just about power. It's about resilience, about unity. If we're to survive, we need to learn from them. Otherwise, we're no better than the tyrants we claim to be." As the Iron Fist ascended into the stars, leaving the planet behind, Kral felt a strange sense of clarity. The humans had not just fought for their survival, they had fought for their humanity. And in doing so, they had reminded him of his own. The war was far from over, but for the first time, Kral saw a path forward. One that did not end in destruction, but in understanding. And perhaps in that understanding, there was a chance for something greater.